Hello, everyone. My name is Rafal, and I would like to welcome everyone to my Headshot Photography podcast. Today, I have a very special guest, Tuvy Lemberg. He's a photographer, but also he's the owner of V-Flat. I'm sure everyone who is shooting headshots portraits is familiar with this company. You guys have been, I'm not saying everywhere, but your product is very popular, and I'm sure you've changed a lot of photographers' way of shooting because of what you guys achieve with your company. So first of all, thank you for accepting my invitation. I'm truly honored to talk to you. And let's dive into the photography world industry, and let's talk about all sorts of different interesting stuff.
Thank you, Rafael. I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I'm excited to talk to you. I know that you're a very talented photographer yourself.
Thank you.
I love anything and everything photography, and there's definitely a lot going on in the industry and a lot of things that have been changing, and I think that there's a lot of really good things to cover and to talk about.
Absolutely. So before we jump into some specifics, could you share a little bit about your story getting into this industry? Because like I know everyone has their own story, and I know also you do all sorts of different stuff, right? It's not just the photography.
Yeah.
I could also say
first
you're
of
an
all,
inventor because the stuff what you guys are doing, it's pretty impressive. So I'm sure there's a lot of engineering behind it and understanding photographers and talking to photographers. I'm sure you do a
I'm
lot
gonna
of
tell
that.
you, I'm gonna start off. I'll start off with a little bit of a funny story
Okay.
that happened Christmas. So B&H, do you use Threads? Are you familiar with Threads?
Yes.
So we're not crazy into it, but we have close to 70,000 followers on there. A lot of them were from our Instagram and so we post on there a little bit. Anyways, the girl who runs my social media was obviously not working over Christmas. So I commented, B&H had posted a thread saying, if you can make one thing mandatory in photography, what would it be? So I commented from V-Flat World. I wrote that I would make it mandatory to get a college degree in order to take pictures.
Oh my God. Okay.
And I just signed off, and I went to bed. I come back 24 hours later. There's hundreds and hundreds of comments and responses and people tagging us and saying the most crazy, nastiest stuff. People are really upset. I guess I didn't realize I was saying it as a joke entirely. I was being very sarcastic because obviously why would you anything artistic, why would you need a degree to do any of that? Most things you don't need a degree for unless you are doing something very specific like a doctor or a lawyer. But and not only that, I personally, for people that know me, I dropped out of high school. So I did 9th grade and that was it. And then I left and I was a little bit of a rebellious teenager. I didn't do anything too crazy. I never went to jail or anything, but I definitely, I was a creative person and very, very visually creative growing up. I took a test when I was younger. They wanted to see why I wasn't doing well in school. So my parents sent me to this person with a PhD to test my personality, and I scored very high in visual creativity. So in any case, people were really, really upset about that. I just thought it was a funny story. I actually have here. I don't know which way it's reading, but it says high school dropout. I made in Photoshop a high school dropout diploma, and then I signed the date 4/20. Anyways,
so you should post that after, like under that post you've made.
So I ended up deleting everything because there was a lot of negativity around it, and people are very excited if they could cancel someone. I think unfortunately the culture nowadays is very quick to jump on people and to attack them. So I just didn't want to continue that conversation. And there were a couple of big photographers that we were friendly with that shared it and said some things that weren't so nice. So anyways, we moved on from it. But the point is that I guess the lesson I learned is to be more careful before
I went through a similar process a few years ago. I'm not going to go into the details because that probably would trigger a lot of people, but I went through, I would even say, more extreme situation. I said something at the same way, like little joke, something that I was trying to be funny, and this whole thing turned into total disaster to the point that I was out of work for a year.
Oh wow.
um, Media picked it up, the story that I had, like, all the local news stations at the front of my house trying to talk to me. Why did I say what I said?
Wow.
I had police involved because I had 1-year-old son, and then we started getting death threats.
Oh my
um,
gosh.
and it was just a joke, and it was, even it wasn't like a joke, that was a statement, it was a question, which
Right.
also kind of triggers people to, like, think differently. But yeah, I 100% agree with you. Like, being careful is a one thing, but it's also interesting that people are so sensitive today that technically anything can trigger them, right? To the point that they would, like, and that's what was fascinating for me, even with my story. Like, they jump on my son, which was a 1-year old, and then, like, they start saying things which, even the cops were like, because I had to give access them to my social media, because they had to look what's happening, and if they could track some of
Wow.
those people. But yeah, and there's like, my son has nothing to do with it, and we were getting death threats for him.
Wow.
So
I mean, I'm
this,
glad you're over with all that, and that
yeah, you know what? Usually,
it
what
doesn't kill
happens
you, it
is,
makes you stronger.
speaking
So
of that, usually it's like it's a storm, like a quick storm, which just kind of triggers people. Everyone's kind of, jumping on the wagon and try to be like, the team
yeah,
against you. But then as soon as the emotions kind of like everyone comes down, and everyone just like, okay, move on to, like, there's
yeah.
another thing they can jump on, right? They're gonna move really
People
quick.
forget. They forget very quick. That's why I just deleted everything and I stopped talking about it because I
Yeah,
realized I could have got deeper into it. It's just
yeah,
it just causes more negativity, and there people
yeah.
already have enough negativity in their life.
But
They
you know
don't
what?
need.
Also, I found what was interesting for me, that filter a lot of my friends, filter a lot of companies I work with, filter a lot of stuff, because, like, I know I wasn't wrong what I said. I know the stuff what I said, and what was interesting for me, that a lot of people say, you know what, you were right what you said, and it was the right question, but
Right,
the agenda, the political views,
right.
whatever is happening was completely different, and people have to submit to it and just kind of remove themselves from this whole situation. So yeah, social media and internet in general, like, as you said, you have to sometimes, like, be extremely careful what you say and how you say it, and
Yeah.
who's going to read it, because it doesn't take
Yeah.
much.
I think it's important to be careful, but not too careful because you also have to feel like you're free, like you're living in a free country. Like you have to feel like you could. People are so careful if they're about triggering or offending someone. It's like
Yeah,
almost too much. Like I think there's a balance that has to be had, but I think also
yeah.
I think there's also that point, like just live your life and not worry too much about other people.
But also, I think photography in general, right? Like, I think we have to build this really thick skin, because if you want to be photographer, and I think we can just, transition to this topic, and you want to share your work, you're going to get a lot of criticism, right? You're going to get a lot of negativity. You're going to get a lot of people who's going to try to rip your images apart, and then
Oh
literally,
yeah.
just take you down. And, the best thing what you could do is just stop doing it, right? Because you have all these opinions. But
Yeah.
anyway, so let's go back to your story. How did you get into this whole
By the way,
photography world?
just to say one more point, the
Yeah,
reason that photographers are so opinionated is because photographers are really their own business. They're business owners. They're their own little CEOs. So imagine 5,000 CEOs of their own company commenting on your video, and you're a competitor or you're doing something. So they're very opinionated people, and they're artists. So I think that's why
yeah.
you have such strong opinions.
But you know what? I could maybe not disagree with you, but I would like to kind of maybe give another point of view. I've noticed that people who are really established in this industry, they don't attack other people. All those, like, people who are starting off, those are the ones who barking the most. Those are the ones who, think they know
Some,
everything.
unfortunately, there still are some big names that are very there are big names that are caught up in that childish stuff, but for the
Mhm.
most part I agree with you. The people that are making real moves in the industry, they're not busy with these types of things. Like someone like Lindsay Adler, for example, she's incredible. She's been
Mhm.
around for a long time. She's super talented. She's not the type to get caught up in that stuff. But in any case, wait. So what did you want to talk about next?
So I want to talk a little bit about your story getting into this industry. Like how did you get into photography, and also I would like to know a little bit how you come up with this V flat company, like how this whole thing originated, and what was the progress, if you could share some of this stuff.
Sure. So I got into photography when I was 19. My parents allowed me to go to when I was 18 years old. I went overseas for a year. I went to Israel to study there, and kind of study party. I didn't really study. I kind of a lot of Jewish people from where I grew up. They take a gap year and they just kind of go and they spend time in Israel and then they come back. So when I was there were so much beautiful things, and I like visually, it's just a very beautiful country with the landscape and everything. And I had a urge to take pictures and to get into photography. And I met someone else that was also doing photography, and I thought I was very fascinated by like the equipment and the camera and the lenses. So when I got back, I went to work right away, and I was 19. I bought my first camera, which was a Canon 7D, and it came with, I think, like a 24 to 105, one of those like cheaper lenses, not an L lens, one of those cheaper Canon lenses, and that was it. I just started photographing all my friends. Anyone who would let me photograph them, I would photograph them. So I did that for a while. I got into family portraits. My goal was to just make money and not have to work for anyone. Aside from dropping out of high school, I also didn't do well with authority and other people telling me what to do. I think it was all part of my personality, but it worked out well. But essentially, I did not like working for other people, and photography was a way to do my own thing and not have to work for other people. So, and be independent and do something creative and use a talent. So I did that. I did family portraits for a while, and then I ended up going into fashion. Not fashion on a big level, but for smaller brands. And yeah, that was really I enjoyed that the most. Once I was dealing with clothing companies, like more boutique brands or like small clothing stores. Once I started doing that, I started really enjoying it, and I got much more into retouching. When I was doing family portraits, I guess retouching wasn't so important, so much more into retouching and color grading and playing with the shadows and the highlights and yeah. And then I eventually, so I did that for 6 years or 7 years. Yeah, I did it for like 7 years. When I was 26, I started V Flat World. I actually wasn't planning. I was happy doing photography. I did want to do something that was a little bit more scalable. And I wasn't getting that many jobs at the time when I started my company. I think that's also what pushed me to do it more. But essentially, I was trying to buy V flats. If anyone doesn't know what V flats are, they're these big pieces of black and white foam board that are in the shape of a V, and you can open and close them, make them bigger or smaller, and they're used to control light in a studio environment. So they're used for, the black would be to add negative fill, and the white would be to add fill light. And there's other alternative ways that they're used as well, but they were so expensive to buy. They were like, I remember finding one place that sold them online. And I live in New Jersey. This place was in New York. It was $130 for the V flat itself, but then it ended up coming out to $500 just to, you could click the X on the top right. So they ended up coming out to $500 just to buy one V flat because the shipping was so expensive on such a big item. So what I did after months and months of researching how to actually get these and make these and not getting anywhere, I decided to actually just start a company selling V flats. And I made them foldable, so they were affordable to ship. So that's really the reason that they're foldable. It was not necessarily to make them portable, but was really to make them inexpensive to ship. They're still expensive to ship because they're still big, but they're not as big. So that's why we were able to sell them for around $200 and offer free shipping as well.
Okay. So now you guys released like the newer version, right? Like I watched the
Yeah, we released
video,
the new
so
version.
it seems like it's more durable, and then there's it's gonna last for much longer, right?
Yeah, it has. The main thing is the Velcro that we had originally that would hold the boards together when you open them, it would wear down over time, and after like a year of use, it wouldn't hold well. And we were sending a lot of people replacement Velcro and whatnot. And then also to protect them in shipping, we would have a lot of damages in shipping because the boxes are big and
Mhm.
foam board is relatively delicate. So we added this U channel. So we got rid of the Velcro and added a magnetic flap, and then we added a U channel, like a hard plastic around the whole edge of the V flat. So to help with the ease of use and the quality also, so they last longer.
Mhm. So who is your most clients? Product photographers, portrait photographers? Because like I
So
know you can find all sorts of different uses for fashion. There's like end of amount of uses you can use those
I would
stuff,
say
right?
anyone who does portrait photography and either has a studio or shoots in their house or travels on location, portrait
Hmm.
photography, headshots, anything involving photographing people,
Hmm.
aside from like sport photography where you're shooting players on a field. But if you're shooting in a controlled environment, I would say that's our clients that use V flats, and they're it's a very popular product. We've sold over 100,000 V flats since we started the company, so
Oh wow.
it's a lot. And um, yeah, and I would say there are some people that use it for product photography, and it definitely could be used in other ways. But the majority is for people shooting people in a
Yeah,
studio usually.
absolutely. And you know what? We can jump into this topic as well. Let me kind of take this. So yeah, so for headshots, yeah, that would be ideal, especially nowadays. And then we can also talk a little bit about AI and how this is going to impact a lot of stuff. But I see amazing, kind of usage for especially for headshots. Like when you're on the location, especially, and you don't have to kind of carry like a big screen or something for the backdrop. That would be like ideal product for especially for those like um, shoots where you have to do like in some kind of strange locations. I think this is just kind of quick fix and quick pull up to make it work for sure.
I'm gonna share my screen if
Okay.
you don't mind. Um, Window. Okay, are you able to see my screen?
Yeah.
So we did a video with Adorama 100. We shot 100 random people's headshot for free,
Oh wow.
and
Okay.
this is how we use the V flats. We use them as white and black backgrounds.
Hmm.
We also used kind of like a little. We folded it, and in its folded position, you're able to use it as like a chin fill, like an underneath
Hmm.
fill, but
Yeah, like a
also
reflector. Yeah.
exactly, yeah. And also if someone's sitting on a stool, they could rest their elbows or create like a little bit of like a posing table.
Hmm.
But essentially this is great because we didn't need C stands, we didn't need rolls of paper, just
Hmm.
just two V flats, pop them open, and that was it. So, and one of the things also is like you could create with a V flat for headshot photography, you could use it as a background. Like if you're going to a corporate office, you
Hmm.
could use it as a background, black or white, and then have it folded like in a V shape, and then use it for fill light if you wanted to fill on one side and have your light coming from the other side. I mean, there's definitely a lot of uses.
Yeah. Definitely, like for headshots, corporate ones, right? Like, most of the time they allow us to shoot in offices and there's no room to set up, backdrop or anything like that because, there's tight. And I think that when I look at it right now and I think about it, that would be just like ideal product to set it up, even because you can even like kind of leaning on the wall, right? Like you don't have to, like, you don't need much space to,
Yeah,
to, to, to,
yeah.
to make this work. Not to mention, as you said, you can just kind of like use it as a the V shape where you can create a little bit of extra contrast light for your subject. Yeah, absolutely. So
What's your typical lighting setup when you do headshots?
so I use like for years 3 light setup. So I have a main light, kicker light, and I have also one light for the backdrop, right? So nowadays I'm started shifting a little bit because I don't know if you were able to see and check some of the stuff what I do lately. For the last year, I started really pushing, trying to kind of like implement AI backdrops into my work, right? So it's not like I'm not saying the backdrop is not important, but it has to be simple, right? So at this point, like I'm shooting literally any backdrop, but white or black usually works ideally because then it's for AI. It's really easily to remove it from the subject, and you also need like a little bit of outline for your subject so the AI can really see the contrast, and the separation from your subject and in your backdrop. And yeah, and that probably, well, not probably, like I'm pretty sure that would work ideally because with the white one, the light which bounce off it would create really nice contrast light, right? So this is my setup. I've been using it for 10 years. So, and with the headshots, it's not something you need some very high end, some specific lighting, right? It's pretty simple.
Some people
uh,
have they have such sophisticated setups. Like I walk into some headshot studios and there's like so many things going on.
yeah, you know what, everyone has
Even
a kind of own story.
Peter Hurley had I don't know, maybe because he just had other lights in his studio, but we shot a video with him. He's incredible. He took my headshot. But he had a lot of lights. He had a lot
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah, he's got like this system which well, I'm not saying he invented, but like I'm not even sure, maybe he did, but he's got this own panel system, tree lighting, very flat. And he's
Right.
been working like this for many, many, many years. So, but you know what, every photographer is different, right? Like whatever.
Yeah.
What I went actually from, like, I transition quite often. Like I started with like very high end lighting at the beginning, and that was just too much for me. Like I couldn't handle all this stuff, and then I went to speed lights, believe it or not, like to very simple,
Okay.
like 3 speed lights, low end ones,
They're easy to
not.
travel with.
Yeah, and that was one of the reasons I've decided to do that, because I had a lot of clients who requested to do the headshot at their locations. So dragging all this equipment, like, if you think about it, Peter Hurley, there's no way he could drag all this gear to the client, right?
Right.
Like people have to come to him. But my approach when I started headshots and I started like pushing my business, I found that a lot of my clients want me to come to their location because they feel more comfortable. They could also have access to the wardrobe. Also, I found was a little bit interesting because those people were very, I would say, more comfortable at their location. Whenever I was shooting at my studio, people were like intimidated, right? Because it's like big, it's a lot of lights, and it's just like, oh my god, this is like something maybe not difficult to handle, but it's definitely some kind of, I would say, a little bit of environment where it's like people like at the beginning they feel really intimidated. So that's why I've decided to change it, and now I went to constant lighting, right? So it's again massive shift. And it's maybe not similar to Peter Hurley's lighting, but it's the one similarity is a constant light, right? Where you just like fire up and you can just shoot. But again, 3 lights, backdrop, and that's it. So, but yeah, with your product, like I know there's a lot of photographers who shooting in all sorts of different locations. That would be, yeah, some nice way.
Yeah.
Of
A great way to use it also is like I'm at the V Flat World office. We have some offices and warehouse over here, and in the corner of our warehouse we have a little area that we use as a studio. And it's white walls. It's like a white brick wall. So I remember one time trying to photograph a model, and I wanted to create more definition on the sides, more definition, and the white kept on bouncing. Like I was shooting her by the wall, and it kept on bouncing light. So we used, in that scenario, I used the black side of the V flat to cut light on both sides of her, which added and you know, a lot of times the V flat it's making subtle differences, and sometimes it's making much bigger. Also, we have a window that sometimes the window shade is broken. Even with the window shade, sometimes light just comes through, and at a certain time of the day, the light spills across the floor of the studio. So we use a V flat to block that window.
Yeah.
You know, it's got like these. We also used it as a changing room a lot, so the models don't have to go back and forth to a bathroom, especially if their bathroom is not so close, and you're doing sometimes you're doing 200 outfits in a day for these e-commerce shoots. So you just kind of set up the V flat, and they just go behind it, change, come out, change. You know,
Wow.
a lot of studios use it like that.
I would never thought about it, but you know, it's interesting how sometimes certain situation push you to be very inventing and like you know you come up with these ideas like you would never thought about it. But now when you're telling me this, it's like yeah, this is so right. Like you know, if you're shooting outdoors, you can put two of those, whatever, block it, and people can go and change and whatever, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
absolutely. So tell me how you come up with this whole idea. Like I know you said that eh, well there would people use like V flats, but how did you come up with this whole kind of idea? Okay, I'm going to create a product around this and then make it kind of like better, right? Because usually those V flats they're like you know made out of paper or you know styrofoam or whatever, and they're like big and yeah. So that was a great idea. So like, can you tell me a little about this whole concept? How does even come to existence, and then how this whole thing turned into the business?
Yeah, so originally I was trying to get V flats myself. I saw a
Mhm.
video on YouTube by Sue Bryce. Have you heard of
Okay.
Sue Bryce?
Yes. Well, I have some interesting story with her, but we're not going to share it online. But
Okay. Um,
but great photographer, love her work. But I
yeah,
had one little situation with her where you know
no
things were
problem. So
a lot.
I don't know her well, but
Yeah.
I know that she was the video that showed up on YouTube when I was looking into V flats, and she was
Mhm.
talking about how to make them.
Okay.
It had like a few 100,000 views, and I just remember reading the comments. People were like, "Where do I get these? How do I make them?" And then I just had like a few months where I had multiple tabs opened on my computer
Hmm.
um, on how to get a V flat. Where I found the place I told you about, it ended up costing $500 just to get it to me shipped.
Hmm.
And then I realized the problem was the fact that it was hard to ship, and I also realized through this whole process that this could be a good business opportunity.
Hmm.
I thought of it as something small. It would be a side hustle. I would just kind of sell V flats to photographers. It
Hmm.
ended up obviously becoming like my full time thing, um, and we're international. We sell it outside of the U.S. as well in Europe, and we're
Oh, nice.
working on the UK and Canada and Australia. But
Hmm.
and we also have a lot of other not a lot, but we have like 5 other product lines that we sell aside from the V flat.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's been a pretty crazy ride. I remember the first 100 followers we got on Instagram. I was my heart was pounding. I was on an adrenaline. The first six
Yeah.
months of the business, the first order that B&H placed with us, I was so excited because I had spent so much money with B&H, like most photographers, and finally,
Hmm.
it's
They're paying
payback.
you.
Now they're starting to pay me. So it was really good, and it helped us grow a lot getting onto their website and into their store because they helped like legitimize us when we were like 3 weeks launched. They took our
Mhm.
product in right away. So yeah, it's been a pretty crazy ride. I got to meet and know a lot of very, very talented photographers.
Mhm.
Um, and we in the beginning, the first few years, we did a lot of trade shows. Then we slowed down. After COVID, we'd slow down on doing shows. The shows, they don't really perform that well. They don't. I don't find that they really are. I know, like as a photographer, it's fun to go to a show, but for businesses, they're a lot of times they're not worth the money spent.
Mhm.
Um, and the whole trade show business changed a lot. A lot of shows went out of business, and now there's new ones. The show that we like a lot and that we're doing is the B&H show in New York called Build. The Build Bild. They did one in 2023, and now they're
Mhm.
doing one in 2025. They
Yeah.
go all out. They go all out. And it's a really fun show.
Yeah. So it's like
Um,
a trade show, or this is more like,
it's a
hands on.
trade show. There's going to be like shooting booths. There'll be models that you can photograph. There will be, um, I think they do classes and speakers, and it's pretty much free. It
Okay.
might cost maybe $20 to get in. I don't know. It's either free or very inexpensive. And B&H has a really big community. They have a
Yeah.
very big. There are so many camera stores and a lot of these little mom and pop shops went out of business. The whole photography market is much different than it was 10, 15 years ago. A lot of it has to do with Amazon, especially the lower end market. Just Amazon just knocked that out. People are not going to buy a $5,000 camera on Amazon, most likely.
Mm.
So, but the lower end, the prosumer or consumer market definitely changed it a lot. But B&H, they have a community. You call the sales team, they actually help you. They know what they're talking about. They train their salespeople. Um, they train them all the time. They're always updating them, teaching them about their new products. We get offered twice a year to go to B&H just to train them on our products so they understand our products better. So they really go all out. Um, yeah, Adorama also. Big fan of
Mhm.
Adorama.
Yeah. I think all those companies, they've created, as you said, communities, right? Because I think selling a product is a one thing, but understanding the product, like getting the support, getting, people who can explain how things work and what you can do with it. It's just a way of doing business nowadays. That's what I believe in, right? And we are like flooded with equipment, with all sorts of different accessories and stuff like that. And it's sometimes, it's a hard call to, because photographers want it all, right? Like, I
Yeah.
remember when I started, like, you want to buy anything, everything was gonna, I don't know, help you. But I think there are certain products which are mandatory, and like you cannot really live without them. But having that kind of place where you can go and you get the real explanation if you need that or you don't, or how this specific accessory can help your photography and understanding some of those stuff, that's the way to do the business and educating people, right? Because photography, I also believe it's constant learning process for all of us, right? Like, even today when we talk, there's few ideas which came to my head right away, looking at your product. And as I mentioned, I use it a couple of times. um Probably going to use it more. I'll talk about it later, how I can kind of get hands on some of those stuff what you guys do, and see how I can also educate people and help others to use something like that, for sure.
Yeah, I'm always happy to send you product. And as far as there's a couple other things in the industry that I think would be good to talk about. Like,
Okay.
I don't know, like, aside from AI, something that I see a lot of photographers struggle with is not being business savvy. So
Mhm.
they're very creative, but then they're missing like the business component, and they're not so good at marketing themselves.
Mhm.
Um, it's very nice if you have a couple thousand followers on Instagram, but if they're first of all, it really depends who's following you more than anything.
Mhm.
So a lot of times, like, just social media is not enough. Um, I think it's very important for photographers to learn a little bit about Google Ads, especially like when people go into Google and they search for things, like, and you could advertise on a local level, like in your area. I think that's very big, and I think that also, having a good website, and I
Mhm.
think people also like something that people like that I noticed is transparency and pricing.
Mhm.
So a lot of times, especially with headshots and things like that, a lot of times like the people don't really put pricing down on their website. I personally think it's a benefit if
Mhm.
there is pricing, not for everything, but for certain things. Like if someone wants
Yeah.
headshots, so here's a package, here's a plan. If you simplify it for the person who's going to be spending the money, they're more likely to convert into a client. And yeah, and I just noticed, because I speak to a lot of people that are not busy in
Mhm.
photography, and then a lot of photographers that are incredibly busy. Some of the
Mhm.
photographers that are busy all day are not that talented. They're they're
Mhm.
they're just really good at business and getting themselves out there. So that it's like, I don't know. I want to be able to. I think it's a good topic because I feel I want to be able to help out photographers.
Mhm. And you see this also from the different perspective, right? Because you are in this world with the product, with seeing what works, what doesn't work. And I agree with you 100%. And then this is the biggest challenge I think for most photographers is running a business, and being creative, and then I don't know, doing what we love to do. But sometimes you have to separate it, those two. I 100% agree with you. And on the top of it, what you said, which also I 100% agree with you, that there's a lot of photographers extremely talented, but they don't know how to run the business, and then they're dying off, right? And then you have those people
Yeah.
who like barely, I don't know, create images which are average, but they're so good at selling what they do, and changes everything, right? I hope, what there will be. I wish there would be a little bit more, how I can say it, stuff which we could learn, because like internet right now is flooded, right, with all sorts of stuff. And like, even what is interesting for me, even with my like podcasts, and then some like YouTube video, I have also like this big group on Facebook. And whenever you talk about the business, nobody wants to listen. But as soon as you start talking about lighting, equipment, gear, all over, like all of a sudden everyone
Yeah.
jump on it, right?
Right.
So that's another kind of like interesting thing that
People
people.
love gear. Danny Diamond told me, he said anytime he posts a video or a picture with gear, it gets like
Oh yeah,
hundreds of thousands of views. Like people just they go crazy. Um,
yeah,
it's a little bit silly because honestly, the most important thing is the storytelling aspect. It's how do you tell a good story? How do you make someone feel a certain emotion?
yeah,
Because that's what people want, and that's what connects, and that's what sticks. And also, and again, this is not a topic that I want to talk about too much, but a lot of people also they use sexualization. They
Mhm.
they 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 they're they go after that. They push that, and a lot of brands also the way that
Mhm.
they market is very very sexual. It's subtle, and
Mhm.
notice that also. And a lot of it, I just think, comes from it, and I also think it's cheap. And this is not coming from. I mean, I'm a religious Jew, but this is not coming from the perspective of religion at all. This is coming
Mhm.
from just strictly of how ads and how the world was 40 years ago. And I'm
Mhm.
not saying that I'm sure it's improved in some ways, but in a lot of ways it's declined. And I think a lot of it is the storytelling. People think they could just post something sexy or attractive or put a naked model on on the front page of a website, and that that gets them
Yeah.
clicks and likes and whatever. Um, I think that I don't know. I don't want to. I'm not telling people what to do, but I think that there's a certain cheapness in that, and I
Yeah.
think that people need to focus on the stories,
Yeah.
and things that actually come from a place of integrity to get people to click and to like. I'm trying to think of a good example of storytellers. There's certain. The truth is, when it comes to, I guess, with headshots, how much of a story could you tell, right?
Well, actually, you can tell a lot of story. Like, to be
Can
honest
you?
with you, yeah, of course, you can tell a lot of story with the headshot. I'll show you. Hold on, I'm going to show you an image one, and you tell me what do you think, and then you tell me if this is tells you the story or it's not telling you a story. Hold on, give me 1 second. I'm going to bring it up because actually, it's funny because I had this presentation a couple of days ago, when we talk about telling stories in headshots, and someone tells me like, well, how much you can say a story in headshot. I'll show you one picture. Tell me what you think.
Oh wow,
Can you tell a
incredible!
story or you can't?
Is that makeup or is that Photoshop?
Oh, it's a makeup, but it was planned, and we kind of create that shot.
That's really really good. Yeah,
Yeah,
this is good storytelling. This is very good
yeah.
storytelling.
And actually, we create that image because I'm sure you've heard that story. Um, in Canada, we have this massive, graves of children, right, from schools. Um, and she's a native, and we kind of talk about it. And there was another native person, and she was an athlete, and she kind of come up with this entire concept, having the red print handprint on the face. So we kind of copied this a little bit, but we added some other elements to it, like and she actually broke during the shoot. Like we were shooting and she started like crying because like it was so emotional for her. She couldn't handle it, so we just like capture it. Yeah.
Incredible. Yeah, that's really, 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 really good. Yeah, you don't see. I don't know. I see so many. I follow a lot of photographers from V flat world, and I see what people are doing. A lot of people are very talented, but like, you don't see stories so much. You see a lot of people doing cheap things.
I think so because I think we're living also in the world where we have to do things which sells, right? So that's the problem. I think if people have a little bit more freedom of pushing certain things, they would do more creative stuff. Because I know in my career, it was so hard for me because you have to do those corporate headshots where people don't even want to come to work with you, right? Like the boss told them, get the headshot done, like let's get this quick, painless, and then let's move on, right? But those are the things which I always love to do because you can push creativity, right? You can push certain stories, you can push certain things, but those things, they don't sell much, right? That's the problem, and that's what sometimes people have a hard time. And also, I think we have a good start of this podcast where you told about the story that you said something and all of a sudden everyone kind of flip over and then lost their mind. So with pictures, I got so much negativity over this image. Oh man, like the backlash we got over this, it's not.
One of my favorite lines is, oh, of course. And by the way, anytime you do something inspiring and something impactful, there's going to always be backlash. There's going to always be haters and people that will come up with something negative. They're sitting in their own miserable corner and they need to bring other people down to their level of misery because they can't enjoy their own life. Which it's sad for those people, but it's sad that other people have to suffer because of their misery. But I will say that one of my favorite lines that I ever heard was, "Don't take photos, create images." I think instead of just doing things quickly, I think a really good photography challenge would be like once a month to just plan out something for a few days and just kind of put something together in real planning, because everything good comes from planning. Sometimes random things also come out good, but if you plan an idea and a storyline and try to really go out and create an image, if you need props, if you need a certain location and a certain subject or whatever it is, I think that it really, really pushes your creativity. I just bought a book. Hang on one second. This is it's called Stories That Stick. It was created. It's got a lot of good reviews. It says how storytelling can captivate customers, influence audiences, and transform your business. I got this because social media has gotten really hard to get engagement.
Yeah.
It used to be if you have a big following, you get a lot of likes. It's not like that anymore at all. They treat every single post like an independent thing. Like either it'll go viral or not. So
yeah. Well, I think we also flooded with all sorts of different stuff, right? And I agree with you what you said, that we have to start telling stories, right? With everything, what do we do? So tell me, like, I'm gonna kind of twist this question. What was the most interesting project you've seen with your product? You showed me that 100 free headshots, and then they used your product. But is there was anything else which kind of caught your attention? It's like, oh my god, this is so cool! Someone have done this.
I mean, it's cool when we see celebrities being photographed near them. That's always cool. We've seen a lot of that, like movie star Brad Pitt. That got me. Kevin Hart, one of my favorites. As far as cool things being done, we had a series for a while called Street Studio where we photographed people on the street. That was also through Adorama, and we would try to figure out a way to use a V-flap, but it wasn't so good because the truth is they're not the best products for being used outdoors. But so we did that. We did like 20 episodes of that. But we found, that's a good question. There's a guy, his name is Jeff Carpenter. He's a friend of mine. I have known him since I started the company. and he's a master at lighting. He's always playing with colors. He always figures out. He does very cool stuff with them. But as far as unique ways they're being used, or just cool shoots that they were on,
Well, either or.
Yeah. I don't know. I've yet to see someone use them underwater. So if anyone does that, hit me up. They're not waterproof, by the way, so I don't suggest.
Okay. So you can't use them, but
you could. I mean,
maybe that's going to be the version number 3. They're going to be waterproof.
Maybe version 3 waterproof. Yeah, there hasn't been a need to make them waterproof.
Okay. So what was the craziest location you've seen them use? They went to some crazy places?
I know that they have. I've seen people fly with them. People sent us pictures flying with them. We have a big carry bag that they come in, like a really big bag. We had 2 photographers that thought it was funny. They did a potato sack race in the bags. And then we had another person who cut up the bag and turned it into a dress on one of her models.
Oh, wow.
As far as, I don't know. Off the top of my head, I can't really think of anything, but there's been a lot of crazy stuff over the years.
Yeah. So how people can get them? They can get them directly from you guys?
Yeah, we sell them directly. We sell them directly. And if you go to vflatworld.com, we also have an option for outside the U.S., not through us directly, but through some of our distributors. And we just came out with our new V Flat, the 2.0, which is stronger and better than the previous one. There's no more Velcro, and it's got a protective U channel around the edge. And that's it.
Perfect.
I wanna send you some though. I want you to actually have some. So after,
you know what, and then absolutely, and then I'll come up with some kind of project where I will use them and then utilize them the way that it's going to be artistic, right? So
for sure,
we'll talk about it more and then see, because I already have some ideas, and then like as I said, it's when I think more about it, it's a very interesting product for headshot photographers, especially right now. And a lot of us, people shoot in, as I said, tight places, a lot of corporate sessions, tight offices, and then sometimes backdrop is one of those things where people struggle with, because in my case, even I have to use like a stand, and I have this like massive backdrop, which is foldable, but still like you have to carry it, right? And it's something
it's a great tool for a headshot. I think I personally, even though I'm not officially a headshot photographer, I've shot a lot of headshots, but I've mainly done fashion and food. I personally think it's the most useful for headshot photographers, because of the fact that they could be used as a backdrop, black or white, and because of the fact that if you're traveling as a headshot photographer, it fits in your car. If you ever have a window that's getting in the way, if you have something, it's good to have in an unknown situation like that. And I myself have done corporate headshots, not as a main thing, but I've done it on the side, and I brought them with me, and they were extremely, extremely useful. Where is this getting viewed? This is going on YouTube.
This is going to go actually on few places. One is definitely starting with YouTube. And then it's going to Spotify, iTunes, and bunch of 20, I think, other some podcast locations. So
I'm trying to figure out a way to give away a V flat. I would love to give away a V flat to one of the listeners or someone. Is there a way we could do like a giveaway? Like we could.
Yeah, absolutely. We can. You know what? Why don't we? Well, whoever's going to be watching this, maybe what we can do, they can send email, and if they got that far with listening and watching it. We can definitely ask people to send email, and then we can pick one person to get it one, and then I'll kind of direct them to you, and then it can kind of connect with you for sure.
Perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would definitely push this on my groups and then some other places. Because I know your company for years. To be honest with you, I've heard about you guys all the time, and I've seen Danny Diamond shoots, and then some other photographers using it, but I never kind of like get able to, because I don't shoot outdoors, right? Like most of them might, because the place where I live, we have winter for 7 months, so like going outside. Oh, wow. So maybe we can test your V flat, how it's doing in the minus 40 or something like this. How that's gonna handle this type of weather, because it's really freaking cold here sometimes. So but it's, yeah, the more I think about it, and the more I kind of pay attention to some of the details, it looks like it's very usable, product, especially for corporate headshots, because I've been always struggling with the backdrops, right? Because you go to these places where it's tight and you just like try to squeeze things in, and this is foldable and you can just like put it right there. And
Foldable and portable. It's light.
yeah, it's light, absolutely. So, but anyways, we're getting closer to the time. I know you have the next meeting coming up, but so we're gonna finish this, and then let's talk for a few more minutes, and yeah, we'll come up with some giveaway for the audience, and yeah, let's have a little bit more chat about some other details. So
For
thank
sure.
you so much for the invitation and you accepting it, and then I'm glad we could talk about the stuff what you guys are doing. It seems like it's very successful, and you guys doing some amazing product, which I'm sure a lot of photographers take advantage of, and it's making their life easier, because I know nowadays everyone is trying to be portable, light, and go to places, right? Even I when I talked to Peter Harley, he also started saying that he takes all this stuff and traveling with them, and then it's like the less the weight, it's definitely
For
something which,
sure. The less the better.
yeah, it's better for sure, especially the amount of equipment we're carrying nowadays. This is nuts, right? Like, it's like I see people with those cards, like they moving out, or they just, I don't know, try to
I'm
immigrate into the
still
different.
I'm still grateful for being able to use strobes without having to plug them in, because I remember strobes when you had to plug them in and they weren't battery powered, or you needed to get a very big expensive battery pack. So
Yeah,
I'm still not over that. But yeah, this has been really nice, and I really enjoyed chatting with you. I appreciate the invitation to come on, and yeah, definitely would love to do this again sometime.
absolutely, for sure. We'll do it again with the time. I think now, when people kind of hear about it, at least my audience, I'll be more than happy to kind of follow up with the product, and see what we can do with it on my end, right? So I'll try to come up with some interesting ideas, and then I'll share them with you. You tell me what you think, and then I'm sure there
Perfect.
will be something positive which comes out of this, for sure.
Perfect.
Okay, so take care, and then let me kind of finish this, and then let's chat for a couple more minutes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.